Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This show is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group of growth minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and you can find us at liveauthentically.today/FB. I'm also super pumped that I recently launched my first book, SOAR, SOAR. It's on Amazon, and it's an experiential spiritual journey through a transformative event in my life and shows how I partnered with the universe to create my new reality. And I believe that regardless of your situation, I believe that everyone can get to a place of soaring. So I'm excited to have on my show with me today, Owen Hunt, also known as Bootsy Greenwood. Hello, hello.
Hi, Pam. How you doing? I'm excited about your book. That's amazing.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you so much. I'd be happy to send you a copy, so you can send me your address after the show.
Yeah.
So Owen is a producer, comedian, author, improviser, and student of the mysteries of the universe. That's it?
Yeah, I'm still learning. So there's a
Quite,
lot.
quite an impressive resume. And I'm super excited about this show today. I was particularly intrigued because, you live at the intersection of humor and spirituality. And I love that you found a way to blend the two, because we can go into this a little bit further in the show, but I think there's this notion or this misconception that spirituality has to be formal and it has to be serious and it has to be somber and all of those things that, quite frankly, I think some people, it just makes it kind of sort of distasteful. They're like, I'm not sure I want to embark on this. And, there is the way that we can interject levity and lightheartedness and fun into it. And you do it so well. So I'm super excited to have you here today. So before we launch into you and everything that you do, all of your amazing work, I like to start off my show with the same question for everyone. And that question is, just do a little drum roll here. Sorry, you just had to. There you go. You do it better than I do. How do you live authentically every day?
Wow. That's such a good question. I guess I probably, if I'm being completely honest, don't live authentically all day, every day. I do my best. In the morning, I find that putting myself at the cause of the day seems to be the most helpful thing that I can do to kind of keep myself present and aware, and authentic. So in the morning when I wake up, I do a gratitude practice, and I'll take maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I don't even get out of bed. I just lay there and just think about, usually someone will come to mind that I deeply care about or love, and or even it could be anything, right? It could be your puppy or a situation, but I'll just try and just really kind of bask in that. And that's kind of how I start my day every single day, so that I can kind of put myself at the cause. I learned not too long ago, people talk a lot about morning routines, and I used to roll my eyes. But I learned a long time ago, actually about a year and a half ago, I'd say, how big of a difference it made to just be intentional at the beginning of the day, just to wake up and say, all right, I'm here. I'm going to decide how my day is going to go. I'm not going to get on Twitter right off the rip,
Right.
Because while there might be a funny joke on Twitter that may make me laugh, there may also be, horrible, just really negative sort of news and things like that. So I try and keep that off my plate until much later in the day, at least if I even go down a road like that. But I try to just stay at the cause, of my day. I am very fortunate. I'm very lucky in my life. So I like to keep that in mind at the beginning of the day. And that usually fuels me and puts me on a decent track for the day. So
I love that. And I would like to echo that. And you're right. It is so powerful to intentionally choose your high vibe state, right? To choose that high flying disc and start your day off with that intentionality. And you know what I found too? Over time, I kind of stacked onto my morning routine, and it had become more and more complicated. And some days I think, I don't know if I have time for that or not, right? Like, I don't know if I have time for like an hour and a half, or if I'm up for that today. And it really doesn't take a lot of time, right? It takes a few very carefully chosen activities. And that can fuel you, for the rest of the day. Obviously, you have to do these little check-ins and fill yourself up throughout the day. But it doesn't take much, getting in front of hydration, gratitude, healthy breakfast, fueling your body, mind, body, and spirit. I try to choose something from each of those categories in the morning. And, sometimes, 10 or 15 minutes is all it takes to set yourself on that right trajectory.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. It's real easy, especially in the spiritual world. And I think like the Awaken with JP guy, he has a sketch from a couple of years ago where he's like, I've been so busy being spiritual, I don't have time to meditate. It's easy to stack so many things and think I've got to do this and I've got to do that. I've got to do my breathing. I've got to do my meditation. No, I'm going to not do that. I'm not going to worry about all these things. And instead for me, because if, to avoid overwhelm, it's like I have to do an hour's worth of this or like 50, all these different activities. If I can just say, you know what, I'm going to do, 10 minutes in the morning and just kind of get myself, in that place. And I alternate my morning routine. So sometimes I'll do morning pages, sometimes I'll draw. But, if I can just start with something small, then it will lead to, I'll probably do it for longer just because I got started. So if I can say, all right, I'm just going to do something for 5 minutes. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to take a walk this morning. I might wind up walking down to the park that's not too far, doing push-ups and things like that. So, just by doing the little thing first, I find that the momentum, it's a little bit easier, to get that going. People also talk about eating the frog. And I think there's something to be said for that, like doing the most difficult thing first. So that it's out of the way. And I think that can be a very helpful thing. Everybody's different though. You just got to kind of figure it out for yourself. Like I have one friend who, she's like, I do the easy thing that gets my momentum going. And then I build up to the hard thing. Other people, like my friend Lehman, for instance, he's like, I got to eat the frog. I got to do that first. And then everything else it comes easier. So I think you just kind of have to, find what works for you by trying different things out. Because some people might need that, like several things organized and, being all put together like that. For me, I'm a little bit more of a free spirit, I guess, or like just, I don't really, I don't love rigidity. So I like to have a little bit of flexibility in my schedule. It helps me. So even if I have like a really busy day or something, I'll try and have gaps where I can just come back, like just get back to my center of awareness, maybe do some tapping, or just breathing or something like that. And just, or even listen to some music. Like I love music. It kind of gets me back on, back to center, grounded.
Yeah. Yep, I love that. And it really is, like you said, it's a process of self-discovery and figuring out what works for you, right? There is no one size fits all, no cookie cutter approach to this. And that's the cool part about this journey is it very much is a process of, I'm just going to use trial and error. I don't like the word error. I don't believe there's any such thing as an error. Process of trying on, right? Self-discovery and seeing what works for you. And that's where the growth happens. That's where the discovery happens. It's the joy is really in the journey, not in the race to the destination. So I've moved more towards a practice or an idea of practice rather than having a regimen, having kind of a menu and just allowing my intuition, like you said, just, maybe I'll go to the park and do whatever, push-ups today, or maybe today is the day where I want to invest a little extra time and make a really nice breakfast, right? Rather than grab like a quick protein shake. So, and that's what's cool. It's like the variety. The variety is what helps to keep it fresh and new and exciting every day.
I love it. Yeah, variety. It truly is the spice of life. Like I just was able to take a trip and go to Michigan and meet some people and perform up there. And that was really cool, really amazing. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than coming back home, sleeping in your own bed, So, so it's nice to, keep things in rotation and just do different things as often as possible because, it's just mentally helpful, I think.
Absolutely. So yeah, next I'd love to dive into, I'm just so intrigued by how you've been able to blend humor and spirituality, and you've done it in a very like integrative way in your life. And, I'd like to hear, your thoughts on, how can people incorporate humor in their spiritual journey? How can we kind of bring this up and make it a lot lighter and realize that, humor is a part of it, that it's okay. Like we can laugh at ourselves and, in a tasteful way, et cetera. So I'd love to hear what your journey has been and how you got to this place of being able to really have the two coexist, in a way that brings, so much joy and enlightenment, et cetera, to people on a daily basis.
It's such a good question. And it's something that I'm still very much working on. Because when I first started, I really had those two worlds completely separated. It just didn't make sense to me. Because comedy is really about pointing out flaws, like what's wrong with things, what's missing, what's odd about this, what's not right. And spirituality is really about accepting and wholeness and oneness. So when I first started doing comedy, I really divorced the sort of spiritual aspect from it. And I think that was necessary for a time, but in spirituality, everything is spiritual. You can get hammered drunk and that's spiritual. Everything is under the umbrella of spirituality. And I think laughing and using humor are really powerful ways to minimize stress, as well as like any sort of activities that we have to do, or beliefs even that we have. Like I like to make fun of the things that I even believe in. I try to hold nothing sacred, right? That sacred cow.
An example. Can I just ask really quick for a
Sure. So one example might be like ancient origin, or like like doing trauma work, or exploring like alien ancestry or something. Like as silly as that is, I think there's validity to it. It's everyone's journey, like you said, so it's up to us to sort of explore it. And where I kind of try to hone in on is purpose, and that purpose, it can take on a lot of different forms. We can explore that in a lot of different ways, from a galactic sense, right? Like if you're a Pleiadian 12D mantis person, or
I am. No.
or if you just want to be really practical and say, you know what, I don't really need to add that to my repertoire, like I just want to be really practical and do the things that I need to do in my life here in the world, because I tend to see myself as a more practical person, but I've also still gotten a lot out of some woo-woo type of exercises and stuff. I've worked with a shaman, I've worked with theta healers, Reiki masters, pretty much you name it. And I see value in all of those skills. But everyone's different. And so everybody's going to need a little bit of something different when it comes to that. But one of the things that I can't get away from is humor and laughter. And I think when we can make a joke about something, especially if it's something that is daunting or scary, it minimizes its influence over us. If I can make a joke about it, now all of a sudden it's not so tense up here. It's not controlling me. I'm more controlling it. I'm like, okay, well, blah, 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 blah. Boom. There's that stress, that tension goes away. That's what laughter does. It just dissolves tension. So whenever there's something that's scary or stressful, if I can make a joke about it, and my grandfather was this way, so I think it kind of ran in our family. That's how he coped. He would cope with things with humor. And I don't know that that's necessarily always the most healthy thing to do either, but everyone's different, and we all have, our own mechanisms that we use to cope with things. But as far as resolving the sort of spiritual with the comedic or the light levity type of thing, it is such a juxtaposition that's something that I'm still really, really working hard to continue to do. And I think JP Sears, I mentioned him already, is someone who has done a pretty good job of that. I don't think it's something that a lot of people do. Like most comedy is just being like, can I curse on your show?
Absolutely. Yeah. If that's
being an asshole.
Absolutely.
You watch like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or pretty much most mainstream. They're just people being shitheads, you know,
Mhm.
and that's funny. It's easy to do that though. You know, that's not hard to do. So it's easy to do that. There's a lot of different types of humor, and I would put everything underneath of the umbrella again of spirituality. One of my biggest influences was Robert Anton Wilson. I read his book, Prometheus Rising, and I think it probably came out in the 70s or something. He's no longer with us, but he's one of the most remarkable minds I've ever come across personally. He's one of my favorite people. But in that book, he draws illustrations that are silly, you know, monkeys and, you know, all these goofy things, meditation, dude floating off a pillow, you know, and he talks a lot about consciousness change, and he doesn't come from this pious place. You know, he talks about using mescaline. He talks about using marijuana and all these types of things. And I'm not advocating the use of drugs, but when he presents it that way, there's less of a stigma. There's less of a judgment about it. And it's more of an exploration of, you know, who am I? What is consciousness? Where are we? You know, these questions that we, you know, continuously attempt to answer. And there's a lot of funny aspects of just being human. I mean, just being human alone, you know, like it's silly. And the closer and sort of more intimate and vulnerable we get, to me, the funnier that is. So like, you know, we did like the breath work sketch, you know, where like I'm doing breath work and I die, you know, but like come back to life. But, you know, breath work it's goofy, you know, you're sitting there and you're making these weird faces and these noises, and it's vulnerable. And if you've ever done something like that with people, like you gotta like really just bury your I guess like in it's like it's almost hard. It's like, because you're not supposed to laugh, like don't laugh, and that makes you want to laugh harder. So you kind of have to, you know, be sensitive and aware of the other people there and the fact that you're doing this silly thing and it's absurd, but it's okay to laugh though too. So it's really finding a balance between those things. And when I started doing comedy, I was writing all these negative things, and I was like, I can't see how this could relate to this. But I guess what I've come to is that there's a lot of comedians that will provoke thought. And I want to inspire people to think with comedy instead of provoking. And there's a slight but subtle difference there, right? Provocation is like, you know, like you get a reaction from people. It's really easy to get a reaction from someone. Like I said, just be a shithead for, you know, and say something that you're not supposed to say, and that will get that reaction. And so I think a lot of people kind of go that direction, but I think what I would like to bring personally is something that's just a little bit more inspirational. Like, I want you to think, but I'm not just trying to just get a reaction out of you. I want you to think about a little bit with a little bit more depth. You know, I'm not just trying to clown on somebody because of their beliefs. You know, I want you to think about their beliefs and what your beliefs are, and compare those two things, and see the thread of silliness or fun or what have you in whatever the activity is that we're doing, you know. So I'm still working really hard, honestly, to resolve those two things, and it is a work in progress, but I've definitely gotten a lot better at it, and it's helped me a ton with you know, doing stand-up. When I first started doing stand-up, you know, my two favorite comedians are Bill Hicks and George Carlin. And so that's really the place that I wanted to come. I was like, these guys are so inspirational. They're so smart. They're so clever, and they're so provocative. But when I realized that I kind of have, you know, back to purpose, like what my purpose is to bring joy to people. And so if I can come from that place when I get on stage and not, attempt to be somebody else like George Carlin or Bill Hicks, but really come from a place of love and levity and acceptance, then the audience usually has a much better reaction to me, as opposed to coming up and like saying all these things and provoking them. Instead, if I just kind of come with a little bit more humility and self-awareness and just kind of bring joy, I can talk about controversial topics or topics that are maybe a little bit more difficult to broach in a way that brings levity to them. So I'm finding this sort of balance between somewhere in that juxtaposition between, what's wrong with the world and that everything is perfect as it is. Those things are both simultaneously true, like,
yeah, exactly. And I love that you have found a way to blend the two, and you're able to do that in the public space. Like that to me is a whole new level, because I do blend the two in my personal life and, with my friends, the people around me. Like that's easy. I'm in my comfort zone. We can take like one tiny little experience and literally like 15 minutes worth of humor comes out of it. And, one of my friends is on me. She's like, you have to do stand up. You have to do stand up. And I'm like, it's a whole new level to like get in front of people and do it in a formal way and be able to do it as well as you do. But I was even joking with her though. I'm like, that would actually be a pretty brilliant business model though. Cause you said like spirituality is all about wholeness and oneness and acceptance and compassion and grace and forgiveness. And then the humorous side of it could be totally, like you said, like ripping people and, and really kind of, but I said, that's a great business model. So you build them up during the day and then you bring them back down. Right? You humor and point out all the, like you said, the flaws and all that. And then, here's a business card so I could help you really, accept yourself. So
because that's what it's about. So that's what I've learned through doing comedy. I think that even though when I first started writing and doing comedy, I sort of had to divorce myself from spirituality in a way, or I chose to do that because I didn't realize that the two actually do resolve. It was still a really beneficial practice for me to look deep, deep, deep within myself and ask some very honest questions. The things that I like the most about comedians is that, they're cynical, but they're cynical because they want to know why. They want to understand things. And so they'll make fun of things that they don't understand, but they'll also ask questions about things and explore those things further and further. So as far as exploring myself on a personal level, instead of me sitting down and being like, oh, everything is perfect and sort of having this pious, approach, instead I'm like, I get depressed, I have hair on my back. I fasted for 7 days and got a hemorrhoid so bad that the doctor couldn't believe it. You know what I'm saying? And like had to like lay on my belly for a week on pain pills because I ate pizza instead of, like a salad, little things like that. Little things. That was pretty brutal. But like getting really personal and maybe like too personal, but really what comedy is about, it's about a lot of things, but you'll hear people say it's about saying the unspeakable. Speaking the unspeakable, saying the thing that you're not really supposed to say. It usually winds up being the funniest because, everyone is shocked and perplexed, but they're thinking it. They already know whatever it is that you're bringing up. And as soon as you bring that up, click, everybody starts howling because it's just funny and it's very personal. And I found that the more personal, the more universal. Like the more specific you can be about your struggle, about your experience, whatever it is that you've been through, the more people are going to resonate to that, talking about morning breath or talking about, whatever weird experience that we have as human beings, people are like, yeah, because it's very specific, but it's something that we've all are familiar with.
Sure. And was there, did you have to overcome any self-judgment to get to this place where you are comfortable speaking the unspeakable, in terms of like, what will people's reactions be? I don't know if this will be, acceptable or palatable. Did you go through any of that?
Well, I bombed for like a year straight on stage. So there was a lot of that. And that was really helpful. I have a mentor too, who was like, hey, have you been booed off stage yet? And I was like, booed off stage yet? He's like, yeah, man. He's like,
wow,
you should try that. He's like, see if you can get booed off stage. So, just pushing, I've had a lot of, bad sets and, it's another world to go on stage and tell jokes to people. I do improv as well, or I used to before the pandemic. And I'm actually, if I'm being completely honest, I much prefer doing improv. Improv is super fun. I don't have to prepare. I can just be in the moment and play and have fun. And the expectations in the audience are much lower. You know, when I go up on stage, I'm on a stage elevated above people, and they're all looking up at you and they're saying, make me laugh. It's better be funny or you're wasting my time. So here we go. I'm trying to bring something out that I've canned, that I've written, that I've thought about most of the time. I mean, I think when you get really good, you can improvise and do your material and kind of bounce back and forth. But that's not something that is very easily done, but it's possible. And I think a lot of really good comics have gotten to that level. But, you know, for me, I enjoy doing stand-up. I'm not trying to knock it. But as far as, you know, the presentation and the struggle of it is very real. You know, I might go and tell jokes at a coffee shop. There might be 10 or 15 people in there, you know, and they might not like what I have to say, you know? So it's just every experience is different, and the audience's expectations definitely change the way that you react on stage. It's completely different even from just going on stage and just talking about something. Because, you know, you're going on stage, you're talking about something, or hosting or emceeing even, right? Like you're emceeing an event. You don't have to tell jokes. You know, I was emceeing on cruise ships, which was great for me. It definitely did a lot for me as far as just being confident and calm and in the moment and reading the crowd and doing those things. But there was no pressure to be funny. There was no pressure to tell jokes. And so when you get up there and start doing comedy, even though I had a significant amount of experience on stage doing music and things like that, it didn't really transfer over to do comedy stand up because it's a whole different skill.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to go back to where you said you bombed for about a year, because I think this is really important. I think that right there is just steeped in lessons, right? Lessons in perseverance, lessons in just, you know, stamina, belief in yourself, etc. So I'd like to hear you talk about that. And specifically, I'm wondering what kept you going, because I know, and I want to hear again what kept you going, how you worked through that period, because this applies obviously not only to comedy, but anything that we're working towards, right? And you know, one of the most powerful stories of rejection that I heard was, a tale has it that Walt Disney was denied funding 300 times before he got a yes for funding Disney World. Wow. And so like that's, I mean, imagine that. I kind of put myself in his shoes and thought, can you imagine? Like, I don't think I wouldn't have gotten to 300. I mean, I would have stopped after, I don't know, 10, 20, whatever. But that's amazing stamina. Like that's amazing belief, right? And he just would not quit. He would stop at nothing, right? Stop it. And so what kept you going during that time?
You know, it's interesting because I think about it, and I work with people too, because like one of the books that was super profound to me was one called Reality Transurfing, written by Vadim Zeland, who's a Russian guy. And he talks a lot about how outer intention works, which is something we might call divine will, or just working with the universe and taking these steps, and how the world takes care of you and it supports you. And when you find your goal, or what I would say is your purpose, then your life becomes a celebration, right? It's not about some far off goal. I think goal is the wrong word there. That's why I say purpose, because you're going to accomplish multiple goals once you're on your purpose. But that's that, you know, idea of, you know, like it's not the destination, it's the journey. And it's very cliche, but once you do like get your like mission statement together for your life, and you're like, I know what I'm here for, I know what I'm going to do. Well, everything changes at that point. You come at the world with a completely different attitude and with a completely different mindset. So, you know, for me, stand-up is one of those things where I felt compelled to do it. And it was one of the most challenging things I've ever done. I'm not the most talented person in the world, but I've usually, when I've started to do something, it's come relatively easy to me, you know, relatively. And there are some things I can't do. I consider myself a generalist. You know, they say jack of all trades, master of none, but oft times better than master of one. So, you know, being a generalist, it has its strengths because I can often, jump into something that's new to me, and some of the same principles and ideas that I've learned from other projects or different skill sets can apply immediately to whatever those things are. So for me, stand-up wasn't fun at first. The first time I did it, I did pretty well. And which is kind of a funny joke that the universe played on me. And I thought, oh, I got this, and then I went and did another set, and that went well. And, the bartender was like, good luck with your career and all this. And I was like, I got this. Then that's when I started bombing for a year. I don't know what happened. I think a lot of it had to do with, they say beginner's luck. It's not really the beginner's luck phenomenon necessarily. I think what happens to us is that we try something and it doesn't seem that hard. And then we begin to understand what everyone else who's done whatever that is has gone through. And we think that we have to do all those things too, right? Like I have to write every day for an hour. I have to do 1,000 open mics before I can do this because so-and-so did it that way. But that's the pendulum rule. That's do as I do. And if you really want to stand out at something, you don't want to do as other people do. You don't want to be a parody. You don't want to be a carbon copy. You want to find what it is about you that's unique, your voice, what you can bring that's, distinct. But for me, doing that, it was just like challenging. And the compulsion had something for me to do with the failure of it. There was something about it that kept me going back, because I guess part of me was like, I can't be bad at this. Like I have to figure out a way that I can do this. And so it's been the most difficult and the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life. And I've had the opportunity to do quite a few things, and I'm really fortunate for that. But this is the thing that's challenged me the most. As far as coaching and working with people, I'm an Enneagram type 2. I'm an INFP. I sort of naturally have some skills. And I also went to school for recreation and leisure studies of all things. But as far as like understanding group dynamics and, and improv and stuff too, those things kind of come natural to me. So this was kind of a foray into something that it was difficult. It was hard. And that is frankly what kept me going back. It was the challenge itself. It was that I've found something that is difficult and I'm going to stick it out to figure it out. And I don't know. And it may just be like a part of, it may just be like a part of what I'm here to do. And I see it that way too. But the skill itself, it can come in very handy in a multitude of ways, like I can definitely hop up on stage and talk to people, and let them know what the day is going to be like or who the next speaker is or something like that, or just talk about something serious and not without any pressure of having to be funny. So I don't know, it's a bit of alchemy, I guess, to just put yourself in a situation that's not easy, that comes hard and is a challenge. But honestly, if it wasn't challenging, I probably would have gotten bored with it. So that's the thing that's kept me going, was that I wasn't great at it, that I didn't really feel natural, which seems the opposite. But if you talk to any comedian, they'll tell you how long it can take. I'm not going to say that it has to take long for people, but it can take a long time. My friend Carlos Valencia is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. He's funny all the time, nonstop, all the time. Hilarious. And that's what I thought you had to be a comedian. And then I met another friend, Jason Webb, who's at the Comedy Store. So he's a very successful, and he's like just the most regular person when he's not on stage. When he's on stage, he's hilarious. But then he gets off stage and he's just very calm, chatty. He's like into technology, whatever. And so there's all different types of personalities that pursue comedy as an act, because it's an act on stage. I want to bring myself to stage and let that be my act. Everybody's kind of got their own philosophy with that. But I learned that, I didn't have to be this, flamboyantly hilarious all the time person that's just constantly cracking jokes. And that I can, be myself and then, present something different about myself on stage. It's just like a part of myself. So it took me a while to figure that out. I didn't realize comics wrote their jokes. Like I thought they would just go up on, because I grew up watching, you know, Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor. I mean, and they're so funny. And I thought, well, I could never do anything like that. They just go up there and launch it. I didn't realize they actually prepare for their,
Right.
once I learned that,
right.
Yeah. Once I learned that, it definitely changed my approach. So now I take time and write, and it's funny how jokes themselves develop. There might be one idea that I had 3 years ago, and it doesn't really fully formulate until, you know, a year or two down the road of just messing with the idea. The amount of editing in comedy tends to be a lot more difficult than the writing itself, I would say.
Okay, interesting. And just hearing you talk about this, I mean, there are absolutely, as you know, I mean, it's apparent that there's deep spiritual underpinnings. Just when you talked about, you know, what kept drawing you back was your desire to overcome the failure, right? And that's growth right there. I mean, that's what spirituality is. It's very much obviously steeped in growth, right? And continually refining. And so, you know, that in and of itself is a spiritual process and spiritual practice, just wanting to become a better version of yourself, improving your jokes over time. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have this idea of spirituality. It's like, oh, I become spiritual and then I'll just be happy and like float around all day. But in fact, really, nothing could be further from the truth. You know, that's when you're really beginning to look deep into yourself and into those shadow parts, the parts of yourself that you don't want to look at. And comedy has helped me to identify those. I just came from that perspective, but it wouldn't matter, you know, where you're coming from. You're still going to have to go through that and come face to face, you know, with those shortcomings, you know, those traumas, and find processes to let go of that stuff, to allow it to be, to accept it into your life. And so, you know, that's kind of why I look at spirituality, you know, in a holistic way, because chasing happiness is so fleeting. You know, everybody wants to be happy, but where does happiness come from? You know, like the growth and the struggle and the development, I think, are precursors to fulfillment. And I think fulfillment is a better word than happiness is, you know, because I think happiness, or I'm sad, I'm happy, they're kind of superficial, you know. Yeah. It's not really that it's not defined well enough. It's like, oh, I'm happy now. Oh, you're happy now? Okay. What about in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
You're not going to be happy in 5 minutes. You're going to want another piece of chocolate or whatever in order to be happy. And I think that's not a healthy way to measure growth or success. But I think what is again, like finding that purpose, the thing that drives you, and that can help you to overcome. I mean, imagine how determined Walt Disney must have been. 300 no's, 299 no's, 299 no's, 300 until he got the thing. Like that is being on purpose. There's no other way, you know? And like, he obviously probably wasn't, I don't know, happy in that sense as he's, you know, chasing that thing.
Right.
But he's clearly on purpose because he keeps going back and keeps going back and keeps going back. Right. So, you know, through that success, and I don't know much about his life, but I do know a lot of what he is responsible for, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But by continuing to pursue that, I mean, look what he was able to do, you know, as a human being. Right.
For sure. Yeah. And I've thought a lot about all those concepts on my journey too, at various points, you know, happiness and fulfillment and purpose. And, you know, you're right. Happiness it's an emotion. It's fleeting, right? It can change in a moment's notice. And, you know, one of the phrases that really resonated with me is a phrase by something that Abraham Hicks said. Are you familiar with Abraham Hicks?
I love her work. Yeah.
Yeah. She's amazing. And so she says, you know, best place to be is mostly satisfied where you are and reaching for more. And I love that. And that is the state that I try to maintain all the time. Mostly satisfied means, I live in the spirit of gratitude. I live in the spirit of appreciation. For the most part, I'm satisfied and happy with what I have around me. But it's that reaching for more piece that I think a lot of people, and I say this with no judgment, but just to bring awareness around it, most people don't realize that piece is an essential piece to long-lasting fulfillment and connecting to your purpose. And a lot of times, happiness is so elusive. We think we'll be happy when, right? We think we'll be happy when we get the corner office or when we built the multi-million-dollar mega mansion, things like that. Happy when we achieve a certain title, happy when we have $1 million in the bank, whatever it is.
Right.
And I think most people would say that when they finally achieve what they thought would make them happy, they're not where they wanted to be. They aren't happy, right? So I think and I too, I kind of lived in that state and trying to figure all that out. I thought, well, is it interesting? Isn't it interesting? I was going to ask you if you found this on your journey, that how you thought you would be after you achieve something is often very different. How you thought you would feel is very different. Like I wanted to be an author for a while. So, I finally published my book, got that out there, and thinking about myself in advance of that, I thought I would have this like I've arrived feeling, like, oh, I'm a published author now. My earth's work is done. I've like arrived at this status, and I published my book, and like I'm happy, like I'm really pleased with how it came out, and I know it's changing a lot of lives, etc. But it's that like reaching for more. It's like, okay, what are we doing next? Great, we check that off the list. Like, what other life, your world changing, what other thing can I put out in the world? So would love to hear you speak about that whole idea of being grateful, or just best place to be is, mostly satisfied and reaching for more.
I love that. I think that's such a great example with your book. I've experienced some similar accomplishments, I would say, or milestones, right? Like I'm fortunate to have, I looked everywhere for purpose, right? And so as soon as I got out of college, I was like, oh, cool, I have a degree. I can throw my life away in peace. Thanks, Mom and Dad. So I went to Costa Rica to learn about being an adventure guide. I thought, well, that's what I'll do, and that'll be my purpose or whatever. So technical ropes rescue and climbing and rafting. And then I came back here and became a raft guide on the Gauley River in West Virginia. And I thought, oh, well, that'll be the thing, and I become, checked off on the Gauley, and I can take people down. And then I did that. And so that felt cool. And then I was in a lot of bands and doing music for a long time. And then I started producing. So I was like, oh, well, once we produce this record, that's the thing, and then we made that record. And I remember I put it on and I listened to it, and I still felt just as empty as I did before we made it. That record wasn't going to keep me warm, or CD or whatever, that album. It wasn't going to keep me warm at night. So from there, it's just been an experience of trying new things and growing, but ultimately the fulfillment and the satisfaction of just being on course, like being on purpose, like knowing that I'm doing the things and I feel the connection. Like there's no greater riches than the way that I feel in the morning for those first 10 minutes. Because I consider it to be, I grew up in the church and stuff, so I probably still have some remnants of religiosity. And I think that's okay. I think you have to decide, are you going to completely, dismantle the foundation of your belief system, or which is fine, or are you just going to add stuff on top of it? Some things are more usable than other things. But when I'm laying there in the morning and I'm just feeling a connection to God, I would like call it that, I guess. There's nothing that can top that. Like there's not an orgasm or a drug high or a TV special or a crowd of people laughing or any of those things, and for each and every one of us, I think we have to find to us what is sacred and then make fun of it. But then, have that thing that we can always come back to. For me, I work a lot on purpose is really, that is the center. The ikigai is what I work with people on. And I want to see my clients have multiple revenue streams based on their purpose. Like a skill is a skill. That's great. You can go do that skill, but that's not who you are. You're not a role in society. You're not a Philly cheesesteak. You're not a sweet tea. You're not a server, or a bartender, or a mailman, or whatever. That's not who you are. That's not your purpose. That's a role that you fill in society, which is great. We appreciate that. You can bring your purpose to that. But what I really long to see when I work with people is that they have found a statement of purpose for themselves in their life that keeps them grounded, centered, and motivated to learn the next skill, to do the next thing. If that's write a book, or do a comedy special, or build a house, or become a raft guide, or whatever. Like, I tried so many different things in that mindset where I was like head woke. My friend Cheney told me that term the other day. But like in my mind, but my heart wasn't really connecting to that purpose yet. I was thinking that it had to be this thing over here, or being a tree farmer, right? I was a tree farmer. I owned a tree farm for a while, and man, I hated that. But like, all these different things that I've done, this has to be my purpose, this or this or this. Yeah. But once I finally dug down into it, and really got to the heart of things, my purpose is to bring people joy. That is the first, most basic part of me. And I think we add layers to that. Like for me, it's to connect, to be a bridge builder, to connect human beings to one another, as well as human beings to different information. So that's kind of like layered on top of that. But if I don't do that in a way that is joyful, that is bringing levity, then I've noticed through stand-up as well as, YouTube or whatever, that if I'm not coming from that place, then I'm not coming from my purpose or essence, then people don't connect to me in the same way, and I think that's very powerful. I think that's something that can be really useful for people, and putting it in words is tricky, because it's not words. It's something that's beyond words. But for me, having that mission statement kind of that I can come back to when I'm having a rough week, and I don't want to do X, Y, or Z, or I don't feel motivated or whatever, then I'm only going to go as low as where my purpose is, and I might have to curl up into a fetal ball for 15 or 20 minutes and just lay in bed and just give myself a break or whatever. And that's okay. Or I might wake up and just feel like crap. I don't know why. Maybe it's an attack, or maybe it's, I ate something that I shouldn't have and my body doesn't, but regardless, I've been able to continue moving forward just because I've had that statement of purpose, that I knew that I was here for a specific reason. And I can bring joy to people in a multitude of ways too. I could just be at Kroger in the grocery store line and make a comment to the cashier, right, and put a smile on their face, or connect to them in some certain way. And that little thing. There was a time when I was driving in my car, and I was like, I don't know how it hit me, but I just realized in a moment that however it was that I was reacting to whatever situation that I was in, I was bringing that into the world. That was like literally somehow bringing whatever that emotion, that feeling into the world, so that if I was going to react in a, angry or, unhealthy way, then I was that's what I was adding. We're all builders of the world. We're all masons. But if I, bring the joy to that moment, then that's what I am contributing. So I try and be as conscious of that as possible, and try to do that, as often as I possibly can, just being, present and aware, but just digging deep into, my own reason for being.
That's super powerful. I think it's so important, like you said, to connect with your deeper purpose and really anchor on your deep-seated why. I do that as part of my morning practice every single morning. And I try to make it as simple as possible. Like my role is to awaken others. At least that's, at this point in my journey, that's where I see myself, right?
That's
so
awesome.
Every opportunity, every interaction, every single thing that I do during the day gives me the opportunity to play a role in awakening others. And that can happen via a number of different forums, a number of different vehicles. Like you said, it's all about, like high vibrations, joy, helping to make the world a better place. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but really ultimately that's why we're here. We're all here to be stewards on each other's journeys. We're all here to help each other, right? To help heal each other.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we make that complicated. We think like, oh, I need to be a Reiki master or a therapist or be practicing or be healing people in some formal way. And I believe that we all have the potential. We all have it within us to be a healer for one another. Like you said, just a nice comment to a perfect stranger can help heal. A smile, holding the door for someone. There's really so many ways that we can reach out and add joy, spread joy to other people's lives, and play a role in raising collective consciousness at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Super powerful content here. I absolutely loved every bit of our conversation, and I love the work that you're doing in the world. I'm going to go ahead and check out more of your skits. I was watching a little bit before we jumped on, and like I said, that's what inspired me to pull out my Christmas mug. So I think if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and claim the Christmaser status.
Okay. You get a Christmas card in like April,
Yeah, there we go. There's no rules. We make our rules up as we go, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And sketches and stuff, that's something I'm hoping to put out some more here as we get into the fall. It's something that I haven't been doing recently nearly as much. I've just been busy coaching and doing those types of things and doing stand-up now that there's been like a small window of stand-up. But I definitely want to put more sketches into the world. I've got a couple of friends that are absolutely hilarious, and I'm hopeful to work with them and have a couple of ideas and stuff written. So yeah, I also want to continue to just move forward. And I think as I continue to move forward, these two worlds just continue to grow together, the world of comedy or humor and the world of spirituality and self-help. So
amazing. Well, thank you so much. And if people would like to get in contact with you directly, what is the best way for them to do that?
Sure. I'm very active on all the social media platforms. You can find me, bootsygreenwood.com is my website. And then I'm Bootsy Greenwood on all social medias. If you send me a message on one of those, I'll eventually get it. I'm mostly active on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So those are kind of where I'm at. And then I have a podcast as well. Right now it's called Bootsy Greencast. I think I'm going to probably change the name of it pretty soon, but I'll keep it. It'll still be searchable in time. But yeah, if people want to find me, that's the way they can do it. They can go get a free ebook on finding purpose at my website, bootsygreenwood.com. If they sign up for the email list, which I don't do like an email autoresponder or any of that. They'll just get random emails every once in a while. so it's not very formal.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that and for everything that you shared on our show today. It's been awesome having you on. I look forward to following your content and staying in touch.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank
Absolutely.
you again.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I do as well. And thank you to our viewers and listeners. I am grateful for you. And I believe that time is a choice, as you know by now. And I'm grateful that you've carved time out of your day to be here and listen to everything that Bootsy has had to share with us. So thanks, everyone, and have a great day. Bye.